Red Solo Cup. The red cup in my hand promised fun, but instead delivered a nightmare I barely escaped. A game of Whisper. The night progressed in a blur of dancing, stories, and stargazing. Around midnight, someone suggested we play Whisper, a game where one person ventures into the dark woods, and the rest have to find them, using only the sound of their whispered clues. The roommate. The next morning, I woke to find Elliot gone and a tiny symbol drawn in chalk on the floor between our beds. I rubbed it away with my sock, convinced it was just some weird prank. Red Solo Cup. 3 weeks into my freshman year at Austin College, I was still struggling to find my place. My roommate Brady had already been absorbed into the campus soccer team's social circle, leaving me on my own. When he invited me to an exclusive party at a well-known fraternity on campus, I jumped at the chance. "Just stick with me," Brady said as we approached the colonial-style house Friday night. "These guys are particular about who they let in." The house throbbed with music and colorful lights. Inside, it was a sensory overload: strobe lights, bass that vibrated through the floorboards, and the sharp smell of alcohol mixed with cologne and sweat. Brady disappeared within minutes, leaving me standing awkwardly by the drink table. A tall guy in a fraternity shirt noticed me and came over. "First time here?" he asked, filling a red cup from an unmarked bottle. "Yeah, I came with Brady Johnson, from soccer." The guy, Marcus, he said his name was, nodded approvingly. "Any friend of Brady's is welcome. Here, try our house special. It's tradition for first-timers." The drink was sweet but had a strange metallic aftertaste. I sipped it slowly, trying to look comfortable as I wandered through the crowded rooms. An hour later, I was on my second cup when things started getting weird. The room seemed to pulse and stretch around me. Conversations sounded distorted, like everyone was speaking underwater. I tried to find Brady, but the house had become a labyrinth of identical hallways and rooms. "You don't look so good," said a voice beside me. Another frat brother, this one wearing glasses and a concerned expression. "Let's get you some air." He guided me through a door I hadn't noticed before, down a narrow hallway lit by strange blue lights. My legs felt increasingly heavy, and the edges of my vision darkened. "Where are we going?" I slurred, but he just patted my shoulder reassuringly. We entered a basement room where 3 other guys in fraternity shirts were setting up what looked like scientific equipment. Vials, tubing, and a centrifuge. In the center of the room was a reclining chair. "Perfect timing," one of them said, looking up from a laptop. Cold fear cut through the fog in my brain. I tried to turn around, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. "What's happening?" I managed to ask as they guided me toward the chair. "Just a little experiment," Glasses explained calmly. "We're science majors developing a new cognitive enhancer. Completely safe, we promise. It is part of our coursework to create a study on it. It'll only take 2 minutes." I remember having an uneasy feeling as I noticed a wall covered with charts and post-its. I blacked out for a short while, but found myself sitting in the chair after a few seconds. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed myself up and stumbled backward into a metal shelf, sending equipment crashing to the floor. In the confusion, I lurched toward what I hoped was the exit. I found myself in a dark utility corridor. Behind me I heard confused voices, but it didn't seem like anyone had followed me. Ahead, a sliver of light showed under a door. I pushed through it into the cold night air of a back alley. Running on pure instinct, I staggered several blocks before collapsing behind a dumpster. I called 911, barely able to explain what had happened. Later in the hospital, blood tests showed I'd been given a mixture of GHB, also known as club drug, and an experimental compound that was not found in their database. When police raided the fraternity house, they found the basement but no equipment, no charts, nothing. The fraternity claimed no knowledge of any experiments, and suggested I might have hallucinated after taking drugs or something. But they wouldn't have any knowledge of where I'd have gotten such drugs. Brady insisted he'd never left me alone at the party and that I'd disappeared on my own. The case was eventually dropped for lack of evidence. The fraternity received a 1-semester probation for serving alcohol to minors. Nothing more. A month later, I received an anonymous cryptic email. It simply read, "Thank you for your contribution." I don't know what kind of sick joke they were playing on me, but I could never have imagined that hazing rituals would go to such lengths to mess with students. A game of Whisper. Midway through my first semester at Lake Forest College, I joined an underground campus tradition, the monthly full moon bonfire at the Lake Michigan. It wasn't official, just something passed down between students who enjoyed a break from the usual frat parties. That November night was particularly cold, with frost already forming on the grass as me and 2 friends, Chelsea and Nate, hiked the trail to the hidden clearing. About 20 students were already there when we arrived, the bonfire casting long shadows through the trees. "Glad you could make it," called Damien, a senior who organized these gatherings. He handed us each a mason jar filled with his notorious forest juice, a sweet concoction that burned going down. The night progressed in a blur of dancing, stories, and stargazing. Around midnight, someone suggested we play Whisper, a game where one person ventures into the dark woods and the rest have to find them using only the sound of their whispered clues. "Who's brave enough to go first?" Damien asked, his eyes landing on me. Before I could answer, Chelsea volunteered. We watched her disappear into the darkness beyond the firelight, counting to 60 before spreading out to find her. The forest was different at night. The familiar trails came twisted corridors between towering black shapes. The only sounds were the distant murmur of other searchers and the occasional hoot of an owl. "Chelsea," I called softly. "Give us a clue." A whisper floated through the trees to my right. "Follow the trail." I turned toward the sound, pushing through a thicket of bushes. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees as I moved away from the bonfire. Another whisper, closer now. "Look up." I tilted my head back, scanning the canopy. Nothing but branches and fragments of starlight. Then I heard it, not a whisper, but a soft, rhythmic clicking sound, like someone rapidly tapping their teeth together. It came from directly ahead, where the trees opened into a small clearing bathed in moonlight. "Chelsea, is that you?" The clicking stopped. Something moved in the clearing, a figure, but not Chelsea, and though I couldn't make out features in the darkness, I could feel it watching me. I backed away slowly. A twig snapped under my foot. I looked down and up again in panic, but there was no one there. That somehow felt worse. I ran, heart pounding, branches whipping my face as I sprinted blindly through the forest. I screamed for help, no longer caring about the game. I broke through the trees near the bonfire clearing, but the fire was out. The clearing was empty. No students, no backpacks, nothing but cold ashes. "Hello," I called, spinning in circles. "Damien, Chelsea, Nate." No response. I ran again, this time toward where I thought the trail began. My foot caught on something soft. My backpack. I grabbed it and kept running until I reached the road, where I collapsed, gasping for breath. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Nate. When I finally called back, his voice was frantic. "Where the hell are you? We've been searching for hours." According to Nate, I had wandered away from the bonfire around 11:30, and they'd been searching for me for over 3 hours before they headed back. The monthly bonfire stopped after that, or maybe they stopped inviting me. I don't care. I wouldn't have gone back anyway. The roommate. Moving into Westfield College was supposed to be my fresh start. I wheeled my suitcase into room 315, excited to meet my roommate and start building the college experience I'd dreamed about. The room was empty when I arrived, so I claimed the bed by the window and spent the afternoon arranging my things. Around dinner time, the door creaked open and my roommate finally appeared. "Hi, I'm Jason," I said with a smile, extending my hand. "Elliot." He mumbled, ignoring my handshake completely. He dragged his suitcase to the other bed without making eye contact. Elliot was tall and gaunt with dark circles under his eyes that made him look perpetually exhausted. His clothes hung loosely on his frame, and his movements were strangely mechanical, as if each gesture required conscious thought. I tried making conversation, asking about his hometown, his major, his hobbies, but he answered in hushed whispers, often trailing off mid-sentence to stare at random objects in the room. By midnight, I gave up and went to bed, feeling uneasy about the semester ahead. Around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of scratching. Keeping my eyes nearly closed, I watched as Elliot sat cross-legged on his bed, furiously writing in a small leather-bound notebook. Every few seconds, he would look up directly at me, tilt his head, and continue writing. The next morning, I woke to find Elliot gone and a tiny symbol drawn in chalk on the floor between our beds. I rubbed it away with my sock, convinced it was just some weird prank. During orientation that afternoon, I connected with 2 students, Mia and Tyler, who lived in my building. We were exploring the library when Tyler nudged me. "Look at that character." Across the grand reading room, Elliot was seated at a table surrounded by stacks of ancient-looking books. He was silently staring at a girl studying nearby, who seemed completely unaware of his focus. "Yeah, that's my roommate. He's unusual." I tried to downplay how uncomfortable I was admitting that. "Have you checked what he's actually majoring in?" Mia asked. I hadn't, and when I did later that day, the housing office informed me that no, Elliot was registered as my roommate or as a student at all. That night, I returned to find Elliot placing small bundles of plants on our room's window pane. "What are those for?" I asked, trying to sound casual while texting campus security. "Deterrence," he whispered, not looking at me. I pretended to go to the bathroom and instead sprint to the RA's room. Within 20 minutes, campus security arrived to find Elliot calmly sitting on his bed reading an old book. The police determined that Elliot had been living in the old maintenance room in the basement for months before the semester started. He wasn't a student, just someone who had found a way into the dorm system and somehow figured out that I didn't have a roommate. To this day, I don't know whether to feel sorry for him or be petrified that someone was able to invade my personal space with possibly sinister intention. That's the end of today's stories. What seemingly innocent situations, like a creepy roommate or a campus event, would terrify you the most if something like this happened to you? Let me know in the comments below the like button.